Welcome everyone. This is episode 45 of the Transmaxxing podcast, and today's topic is transitioning in the army. So we actually had someone talk about their experience on the Transmaxxing subreddit, and now we actually have someone else who did something similar. So Jasmine, what was your experience transitioning in the army?
So I'm still currently in transition. I've only been on hormones for about 7 months now, but it hasn't been that bad. I could kind of describe it in more detail if you have more detailed questions, like from the start, like the entire process, how it starts, and kind of how to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I should start asking what made you join the military in the first place?
Okay, so I always wanted to join, when I was like 17, 18, 19. So both my parents were in the military, and both my brothers were in too. So I don't want to say it was like destined for me to join, but it was like I was probably going to eventually join anyway. But I guess like the biggest thing was to be more masculine, if that makes sense, to kind of cope and just try to do something more masculine. So that's why I joined eventually.
I think it's fairly common for people with those gender feelings to like overcompensate by joining the military, for example. Those like stereotypically masculine things.
Yeah, exactly. Because I wasn't like really into your typical like masculine things growing up. Like I wasn't into like cards, outdoor stuff like fishing or hunting or stuff like that. I was more of like a homebody, wanted to stay at home and like I liked cleaning, doing chores, playing video games, stuff like that. So, and when I was around like those teenage years, I kind of just, felt something was off in my life at the time. And that's why I remember coming home from work one day crying to my mom. I was like, "Hey, I'm going to join the military." I ended up not at that time, but I still remember that night really well.
So how was your time in the army as a male?
So I'm still currently in. I still have about 2 years left. I don't know if I'm going to stay in or not, but there's a lot of benefits of staying in because of how much stuff is paid for you, like drugs, HRT, hormones, surgeries, and all that stuff. It's a lot of it's covered by the military and the TRICARE insurance. So like you would be shooting yourself in the foot to get out mid transition unless you're like kind of satisfied with where you're at currently, if that makes sense.
So what are you looking for to get paid by the military?
I would say the big thing is FFS because it's probably one of the more costly and maybe one of the surgeries that you would need a lot of time off to like fully heal and get the swelling down so you can go back to work. Because if you were to do this like in the private sector or civilian life, you would have to take a considerable amount of time off from work to go to like consultations, actually doing the surgery. You would probably have to fly to a specific place, like depending on what surgeon you want to do it, like what state or a different country. The thing with the military is that all of this time off is paid time off. It's convalescent leave, and you're not going to be paying out of pocket for anything. So I think that's the biggest thing. In terms of pricing, I don't know off the top of my head, but we're talking like possibly $20,000, $30,000. So I mean that's a lot of money. So
Can you just choose whatever FFS surgeon you want, or are there restrictions?
yeah, of course, with the military there will be restrictions. From my understanding, if you get your surgery done at what's called an MTF, medical treatment facility, it is 100% covered. So your surgery would be done by military surgeons. You will not pay a thing. However, if you elect to get a waiver to not do it from military, you could go out and the private sector and have insurance cover that. It's just that process takes a lot longer to get approved. just like everything in the military, there's a lot of red tape and bureaucracy and certain timelines and deadlines you have to meet. So a lot of people that I know just they end up getting their surgery done at the military treatment facilities.
Yeah, I can see that, but I think it's important that you make sure the surgeon you go to is a good one, like especially with your face is very important. So you just shouldn't go to whatever you get for free. That's not really a good idea, I think.
It's exactly why I haven't chosen to like start any surgeries yet. Obviously, I know I want them. It's just like you said, finding the right person because oftentimes just because it's free doesn't mean it's the best.
So can you go into the process for transitioning in the military with getting a diagnosis and everything?
Oh yeah, this is easy. Well, I did see that Reddit post that someone made recently. Apparently, they didn't have a diagnosis for gender dysphoria, but essentially, so the first step of the process is the service member will receive the diagnosis of gender dysphoria from a military health provider. That's the key word. It has to be military health. Say you went and saw a private practitioner, like a private doctor or a private psychologist, and they gave you a diagnosis. That's not good enough for the military. It's cool that you get that, but you need to see a Navy psychologist like I did. So they're just going to assess your mental state, make sure that your thoughts are well controlled. You're not going to have any issues that could possibly present to you from transitioning. The second step is that your PCM, which is your primary care manager, will refer you to endocrinology for evaluation. So you'll get all of your baseline labs done at that time. At that time, however, you will not start hormones. After that, you'll get referred to the TGCT, which is like the transgender care team. Essentially, your entire care plan is going to be like set for you. I mean, obviously you'll have input and stuff like that, but I guess like starting dates. Hey, you're going to start hormones at this date. You're going to have labs done at this date. It's just kind of all set up for you. So you'll do all this paperwork, questionnaires, and stuff like that. And then eventually you'll have your drafted MTP, which is your medical treatment plan, which is drafted with you, your doctor, your care team, and all that stuff. One of the last steps will be once you have that treatment plan drafted, you have to route it to your theo, which is your commanding officer. Essentially, they have to sign off on that you're able to start gender affirming hormone treatment slash HRT. At the same time, you are encouraged, but you don't have to route what is called the ETP, which is the exception to policy, which essentially states that even though you are still legally a male, that you could still get treated under female policies for certain things, such as the PRT, like your physical readiness test that you have to do once a year. So, like the Army, Navy, Marines all have different tests you have to do. And of course, it's based off your gender, so male or female. So, you can get stuff like that. The big thing is uniform regulations. Obviously, being a male, you can't have long hair and stuff like that. So, getting that changed to female as soon as possible will allow you to start, growing out your hair and stuff like that. So yeah, basically, once all of those things are signed and routed, you can then start your hormone treatment and essentially, quote unquote, start transitioning. Although there is stuff you could do in the meantime, like laser hair removal and electrolysis and stuff like that.
Wait, did I hear you correctly now? You said you cannot have long hair as a male in the military. What the fuck?
That is correct. So for the US military, they are, I don't want to say strict, but essentially strict uniform regulations. When I say uniform, it's to include hair and dress, what you can wear on base, off base, and stuff like that. It's very strict. It covers everything from hair length, hair color, makeup, your nails, jewelry like earrings and stuff like that. It's really in depth.
Oh, what the fuck? This is so retarded. So, how did people treat you before and after you started your transition?
So a lot of people were surprised because I was like manly man, if that makes sense. Like Mr. Bodybuilder, Mr. Go to the gym every day, only talk about that type of thing. So a lot of people were surprised, but at the same time not surprised because they knew like something was off with me. But yeah, everyone's been really nice. I've definitely been treated a lot nicer, I think. There are obviously some people who don't agree with it, but you're going to find people like that everywhere. But I would say overwhelmingly it's been really positive. But I should also note I do not have an approved exception to policy. So in current times, I still have to present quote unquote male at work. But it's not the end of the world because I know I'm like on the right path. You know what I mean? So once things are approved, I could basically just be myself.
I will be honest here. I have a hard time recommending this to people who are not currently transitioning because it's fairly easy to transition outside the military. You can like buy hormones online or like go to like an informed consent clinic and for a very low cost you start HRT and giving all this bureaucracy and most people probably not even getting good surgeries in the first place. I don't really think it's a good idea for people to join the military for the purpose of getting trans healthcare, at least.
So I actually completely agree with you. Um, it's a really weird spot right now because it was at one point fine and then it wasn't fine. Like the government had a ban in place and then a different president came in, repealed the ban. So this may not even be a permanent thing depending on the next administration. But I think for the people who currently are in and say they have like a long contract, at least they can do something about it. Where before, with the ban in place, they kind of just had to live with it and they couldn't do much. So, but I do agree that it is not ideal by any means. There is a lot of red tape and bureaucracy and a lot of stuff that slows down the process.
Yeah, and considering how important it can be to like start HRT in time for having a good outcome, I feel like this is mostly relevant for people already in the military, and I know that a lot of people are like overcompensating, or they might have a rough time in their life beyond the military to get like a new start or whatever, and then they realize later that they want to transition, and of course it makes sense for them to pursue this. So it's a good thing they can. But I feel like the people who realize they want to transition already, they should probably not join the military. It's better to stay out of it, I think.
Exactly. So that is one thing is that yes, there is this policy in place for service members already like currently in. However, for say for some reason a transgender individual wanted to join the military after completing their transition in the private, say they started like at 18 or 19, transitioned, and they're about 23, 24, for some reason they want to join, at least they could still serve now, as what the policy before they couldn't. And with them being that young and having probably like more privatized healthcare, they could have a better transition by having to start, say, you're 27, 28, 29, having to start in the military, then having to wait months to a year to even start HRT. Yeah, like obviously they're not going to have as good a transition as the other person.
And to be fair, I think politically it can be valuable to have like people sympathetic towards us in the military in the case the social order breaks down. Of course, it's good to like be control over the weaponry and that stuff. I'm not sure if that will happen or not. So this could be maybe a motivation for conservatives wanted to keep out like trans people because they don't want people like sympathetic towards the opponent's side to like have weapons, to be honest. But I also kind of dislike the military with all this, like, it's kind of ridiculous with how people are controlled there and you're kind of enslaved in a way. Like, you cannot just go and fight, you have to like follow all these ridiculous rules and regulations. And like most people don't even like see combat anyway, they are like doing some other job that pays significantly less than the private sector. Or if you go to combat you might like die or get like really badly injured. So I'm not sure what to say about this. And like if you want to like be armed in the USA, you can just get like a weapon anyway because there is not that much gun control. So you can get like an AR-15 and feel like powerful that way. You don't have to like actually join the military formally.
Exactly. In my personal opinion, I would probably advise people against joining the service solely to transition. If you know you have gender dysphoria, I would advise against joining. There's many reasons, but the political landscape, the times associated with everything, how long it will wait to get these surgeries. There's a long wait list for everything. Speaking with surgeries, we didn't go over what they actually offer. So they do offer obviously hormone replacement therapy. They offer speech therapy. They offer orchirectomy. They will also do SRS for you and facial feminization surgery, thyroid reduction, and breast augmentation.
And of those surgeries, I think it's mostly FFS that is interesting. I think I don't know about like thyroid reduction if there is like much point to it. I haven't researched it. I know that like orchiectomy is stupid. I know that that's a kind of questionable, like especially if you go to like an army doctor. That's not a good idea, obviously.
Yeah, so I'm still on the fence on what I want to do, honestly. I could get some surgeries now and have them paid, or I could just wait until I get out. So, yeah, I don't know.
I think the conclusion we can draw here is that you will not face too much in terms of social problems. And if you go on HRT early on, you will not even need any surgeries in the first place, so it doesn't matter too much as long as you get your HRT, that's all you need. But if you do need surgeries, it's kind of messy, it seems.
Yep, I agree. But like with all things, it's better to start early. So I mean, hopefully this is helpful to people if they're in, say they join right after high school, they're young, at least they know they have a path forward with this until they can get out.
Yeah, I hope that the transition will work out well for you. And I think this marks the end of episode 45 of the Transmaxxing podcast.